Uh-huh.
Oh, Foxy, it's your birthday. Not for real, real, just for play, play. This is Cree Summer, and Moana Nui will be right back.
Aloha mai kako. So welcome to Kāne Voices on Moana Nui's podcast. And if this is the first time you're tuning in, this is the last of 4 episodes of this Kāne Voices series. And the idea was we wanted to get some stories and get to hear from the Kāne in our lives, give them a space to talk. Conan Wykes was originally interviewing our guests, but he is actually also has a story of his own. So he's pursuing what he wanted to do is go towards like psychology or some sort of social work, helping other folks. So it's a good thing that he's not here. Sorry you're stuck with me interviewing, but my name, for those that don't know, my name is Lisa Ka'anoi, and I work at Papaola Lōkahi. And Papaola Lōkahi is a Native Hawaiian health board, which is located in Honolulu, Oahu. And today, who we have here today for our guest is Aaron Seipel. And he is actually going to school right now in Arizona, and just found out today he just now finished his midterm. So woo, go Aaron. So tell us where you're calling from, what time it is, and how's the weather?
It's hot. It's Arizona, so it's always hot, even in the winter. So it's 4 o'clock here. I'm calling from Phoenix, just north Phoenix, central Phoenix, kind of that area. Yeah, it's like 80 degrees and sunny here. It's beautiful for Arizona.
Nice. So tell us, let's go way back. So we wanted to get a perspective now that we know that there are more Native Hawaiians on the continent than are here. We wanted to reach out to someone who is there, which is you, and also that's going to school, right? So you have the hopes of actually coming back here to do your service payback. And so tell us about where you grew up, where you're born, how you ended up there. We'll just start from the very beginning.
Yeah. So I mean, if you want to start from the very beginning, I think it starts when those first little critters came out the water, with the gills. No, I'm just kidding. So I think so I was born on Oahu, to my parents who were born and raised on Oahu. But kind of like how a lot of Hawaiian families were kind of forced to leave just because of the cost of living being too much. Both my parents worked a couple jobs, and they wanted to raise a family and kind of be around for their family. So they moved to Arizona, to the East Valley, Chandler, if anybody's familiar, in 1996. And it basically grew up in Chandler, the East Valley. Went to high school there, and later went to the University of New Mexico, played baseball on a scholarship there. And then, I kind of found my way to Creighton University in the PA program. So it's been quite a long journey. I don't know if you want all the details, but maybe another time we can get into all of them.
So do you have any siblings?
Yeah, I have an older sister. I'm not going to disclose her age. I don't think she'd like me to do that. Yeah, she lives in Phoenix too, or Scottsdale. So she's actually pretty close to me. And so, yeah.
So what are you going to school for?
Physician assistant studies. Uh, Basically, COVID kind of gave me some perspective on life. I was doing something completely different, and COVID really kind of drove me into the helping profession. I've always liked helping people. I always liked teaching people, and so yeah, I thought I was going to be a firefighter. I was all over the place really for a couple of years there. I was like, I want to do this, I want to do that. But then I decided on PA, and then yeah, here I am.
So is anybody else in your family in healthcare or firefighters, or how did that happen? Like what
Uh,
made you like think I want to do this?
so both my grandmothers, my Grammy was an LPN for some years, and then my maternal grandmother was the nursing manager at Halinani in Oahu for years. And so they were kind of in my life, like in terms of healthcare, but to be honest, I never thought I was going to be in healthcare. Uh, as a young boy who played sports and was kind of good at them, I thought I was going to be a pro, and so that was my focus basically growing up. And so was just playing baseball and then trying to get scholarships and stuff like that, and then maybe go pro. Obviously, it didn't work. But yeah, I definitely think their input in my life, just by being around and having, when I was sick or something, my mom would call my grandmother and be like, "Hey, something's wrong," and having that advocate in your corner is always nice. Um, and so, yeah. Also, my fiance now, I just got engaged. She was kind of in the healthcare field, and so she kind of she didn't nudge me or anything, but just seeing the way that she interacted with like some of the clients and patients she was working with, like really kind of inspired me to get into healthcare.
Nice, congratulations.
Thank you.
So you guys thinking of having a wedding there or here?
That's too soon. Too soon to
Too
know.
soon,
I,
too
I
soon.
don't know. I'm in school. I don't know. You gotta ask her. I don't know.
That's true, yeah. And so Aaron is one of our scholar awardees. So how did you hear about the Native Hawaiian Health Scholarship?
Honestly, I was just kind of looking around. I had my grandfather had actually. I don't know if anybody listening. He might be listening, but Keomiki Okui was my grandfather. He worked at KCCN for a long time on Oahu, and he was very involved in a lot of Papa Lōkahi stuff. So he was like, "You should look into ʻohana and all that stuff," and then kind of found it through there. And yeah, I applied, and the rest is history.
Very nice. So what is your so going to school, so you spend most of your life on the continent, correct?
Yeah.
And then you're trying to find your way back home. And what do you want to do when you get here when you pay your service time?
My focus and my real passion, I guess, is to work in the geriatric community. So helping Kapuna, that would be my ideal situation. I think I was kind of driven into that from my paternal grandmother. She was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's, and kind of seeing how the caretakers and our family were taken care of by those caretakers during those, hard years. It was amazing to see, and I knew that I wanted to be a part of that. And so to be able to help more than just, someone suffering from Alzheimer's or, dementia, cancer, anything like that, helping the family too is something that like I truly value, and I think that that would be my ultimate goal is to work in that community.
Very nice. So I know that there's part of it is uh, part of the diaspora, right? So you're Hawaiian, but you're there. And so there's this longing or yearning to come back, and there's always this feeling of, not being Hawaiian enough, or I want to go back and, get to my roots and stuff like that. And so, do you want to talk a little bit more about that and how like the challenges or, how that's going over there? Like, do you get to see part of, get involved in any other Native Hawaiian events or communities over there?
Yeah, so that's a very, very uh, actually close topic to me, I guess. I've felt kind of that way most of my life, is where I felt that I was always the most Hawaiian in the room, but I wasn't surrounded by Hawaiians or anything like that. So I always felt, a little different. And then going back to Hawaii and seeing my cousins and stuff like that, it was always kind of weird because I was like, am I as Hawaiian as they are? It's kind of a weird situation to be a part of. Um, and so, I think my parents did a really good job of trying to raise me Hawaiian. And we were involved really early on in a lot of like the Aloha Festival. There's an Aloha Festival actually coming up in Tempe. That's actually pretty big. But I remember in like early 2000s, there was like 10 tents up in the middle of Phoenix in the summer, and it was hot, and like everybody was sharing food and stuff like that. It was very different, but now it's huge. So there's definitely a big community of Hawaiians over here.
And so, what else do you do to like try to stay connected or feel connected, or because you're going to be in the Native Hawaiian community here helping our kupuna. So like, how are you going to be able to like get adjusted back home?
Yeah, I think for me, it's one thing that I do a lot is talk to my family, because obviously they're all born and raised on Oahu. So talking to them about just kind of some of the experiences that they've gone through, and just kind of picking here and there some of the language too. Like I grew up with, kind of some Hawaiian, some pidgin, some, in the house. But then when I go to school, it's like you never heard it. So, um, picking up those words and learning the language a little bit, that's definitely something that I've been striving to do, especially lately, knowing that I am going to be going back. I never thought I would. I always, like you said, yearned to go back home, and I never felt like it was going to be an option for me. And so, yeah, it's an amazing opportunity for me to go back home and kind of, I don't know, reclaim what's mine, I guess. I don't know. It's something that I've not necessarily was taken from me. Okay, maybe. We could dive into that, I guess, a little bit later. But yeah, I'm really excited about that, and I'm trying my best to get up to speed, if you will.
Right. So one of the reasons why we did this podcast, and a couple other things, why we call it Kāne Voices and why we decided to have all our guests be Kāne, is because um, we realize that there is not as many Kāne in healthcare as we would like. And so it's trying to find out like where they're, where are they at, and where are they thinking, and like what triggered them to choose the path that they chose, right? And so, it's trying to uplift folks such as you, especially that are on the continent, trying to come back. And so we want to have like grow our own healthcare providers, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess like in the places that you work at, even there, what is it like? Like, is it mostly female? Is it some male? Are you the only male? Like, and how do you interact?
Yeah, I think in nursing, that's where I kind of got my start in healthcare. I was a CNA at a hospital, and I was, I think, one of like 5 guys on the entire unit. Now, that's not to say the docs, most of the docs there were, it was like 50-50, I'd say. But yeah, being one of like 5 men on the entire unit. It's kind of weird because you kind of stick together. Like it's like, oh hey, you're a guy. Like it's not like, we're not trying to like, not talk to the women or anything like that. It was just like, oh hey. But yeah, and I think it's a really important thing, because I think there is kind of, like you said, there's been a shift, and it's very female heavy, and it's not, and I don't want to, upset anybody. I 100% believe that, like, the wahine should be in these roles and in, physicians roles, physician assistant roles, and things like that. But there is a need for men, and it's there's a growing elderly population, and so knowing that, about 50% are men, right? So it'll be helpful to have more men treating other men, just because, they kind of know what they're going through, and some of those other social things that maybe a woman doesn't understand.
Right. And so I guess what would you, so whenever I get into my work lingo, and I'm around other people in the workforce, I always, we're healthcare in general we're in a crisis, right, nationwide anyway. And so I think for healthcare, we're in direct competition with every other occupation there is, right?
Yeah.
Because some people don't want to go to school. They want to make money right away when they get out of high school, or they got to provide for their families. I mean, I don't know what, your thoughts about that, as far as like um, being willing to take the time to go to school, right? Versus,
Yeah, I mean, that's the I think you were talking to Corey on the last podcast, and he talked about that financial burden. Just to apply to school costs money, and so it's like, it's one of those things that if you don't have the money, how would you even think to go? So you got to make the money first, right? And then that can kind of suck you in, and then you have bills and you have family to take care of, and like it's hard to go back to school, especially if you have that expectation of like, hey, I got to take care of the family, I got to take care of myself, I got to survive. And you have to really kind of, if you're able to, then you can make that jump, but it's hard to. And I have some friends who kind of in that same boat. They they were close to finishing their degree, and then kind of the family called, and they're like, I gotta go start working, and then he never went back. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't not condoning anything like, you have to go to school or anything like that. But I think that everybody finds their way. Um, and so, yeah, it's hard when those pressures from the outside are getting to you. You want to work and you want to provide. And I think one thing that in our society now, kind of um, accentuates. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's kind of the male provides. And so that's something that you hear over and over again, and you think, okay, I gotta do that, right? And so, it may not be true, socialization and all that stuff, but I think that's something that, you know, a little boy hears, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna go to work like dad. I'm gonna protect my family. I'm gonna provide for them. I'm gonna do all these things. And and sometimes, healthcare isn't that thought. Like you gotta pay to go to school. You gotta get a bachelor's degree. Then you gotta go get your nursing degree, or you gotta go, get a bachelor's, then go to med school. That's time consuming. That's money. It's a lot of money. Like there's so many factors at play there, and it's hard to recruit people into that.
I mean, yeah, it's tough. And you can't blame anybody, right? So,
Right,
and not that there's no wrong or right, or one's better
right,
than the other, but it's like, how do we, especially for the rural communities and our islands, right? We really need primary care providers really bad,
yeah,
right? And so, yeah, it's trying to like make a connection, on someone who feel, because there's also the perception, like my parents are going to make me go to college. You got to go to college. You get brainwashed. You got to go to college. You got to go to college.
Right.
And you get so brainwashed, you don't even know what you want to do yet sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're just doing what you're told. And sometimes people just don't figure it out until later, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of what happened to me. I mean, I knew I needed to go to school. And then I got there and I was like, well, I don't actually like doing what my major is. So I was like, well,
What was it? Can I ask?
Communications and like journalism. So oddly enough, I'm on a podcast, kind of doing this. So I got pulled back in somehow. So yeah, so like, I thought I was gonna love it, and then it turns out it just wasn't for me. And so I kind of got pushed into some other things. I was in construction, I painted houses, I was doing all sorts of stuff. And then I kind of found my way into this, and this just feels right.
So can I ask you about how you chose PA versus like being a nurse, being a doctor, being in lab or radiology? I mean, there's all aspects of healthcare, not just the clinician part of it.
Right. Yeah, I think there was a point where I was like this close to going to nursing school. But just working day to day in the hospital, I felt like I wanted to. I was looking at a patient's like electronic records, and their medical records and stuff like that, and going through their orders to see what I needed to do for the day. And I saw a couple of PAs like that signed a thing. I was like, whoa, that's cool. I was like, they can do that? I was like, wow, okay. And just seeing like some of the things that they were doing in the hospital was so cool to me. And I was like, wow, okay, so it's I think it's the perfect position for me. I like to interact with people, and you get to do a lot of procedures as well. And I like to do stuff with my hands. I was in construction, right? So like it makes perfect sense for me to kind of sew somebody up or something like that, and also talk to them, crack jokes. That's my kind of personality. So that was what was important to me. It was interacting with the patients, and also being able to kind of be a part of the decision-making process. I think that's one thing that's really cool about being a PA is you get kind of that same nursing interaction with patients where you're with them a lot more than a doc, but you still kind of have some of those decisions to make, like physicians.
Nice. And so, like, as far as being a PA, right? So there's NPs, there's mid levels, right? So there's a doctor, then there's mid levels, then there's nurses, and then the supporting staff. And so, like, did you ever think of like going into psychology or social work, or just like what you said just now? You just saw that and you're like, cool, I want to try that.
Yeah, I mean, I did think about psychology a long time ago. This is like my undergrad, so I thought about it, but at that time, science was scary to me. So and here I am in a medical program, and I'm like, yeah. So I was a little afraid of science back then, and so I thought about psychology because I am really interested in kind of what's going on upstairs. And so I think that's something that is really cool. But I think it was mainly so like I said, I was thinking about going into firefighting, and I got my EMT certification. And in that process, I really started to like learning about the medications and learning about the different types of treatments that advanced practitioners could provide. And so that was something that really kind of hit home with me. And so I think that's what really drove it home, because like I said, I thought I was going to be an EMT and firefighter, but it was that class and a little reinforcement from my EMT instructor. He straight up said, I think you'd make a great PA. I'd love for you to be on my fire truck, but I think you'd be a greater PA. And I was like, wow, okay. I walked home with tears in my eyes, like, oh my God, I can do this. But so yeah, I think there was those kind of moments that kind of pushed me this way.
Yeah, so that sounds like it's a core memory, like what triggered this. And so, like, for example, there's a lot of folks that are first time college graduates, right? First generation college graduates.
Hmm.
So that's kind of another whole topic we could be discussing, right? Because as well as here in Hawaii, like public versus private school is a big thing, right?
Yeah.
And so how do we make sure everybody gets the equal opportunity, right? To be able to pursue or even think about going into healthcare, right?
Yeah.
So like what advice would you give another Kane that may or may not be thinking about what they want to get into?
I think I would tell them, wow, that's good. That's a very good question. I'm sorry, I don't know if you heard my dog in the background, but but I think I would tell other Kane, to kind of look at what it is that it means to be a man in this society, and if it means, um, going to work, taking care of the family, or if it's taking care of others, or it's taking care of the community, if it what is your kuleana, if you will, um, what is it that's going to give you the most fulfillment, from your life, and um, what are you going to be happy about when you're 40 years down the road? Are you going to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, wow, I'm proud of what I did. And I think healthcare is something that, like, you can't look back on and be like, wow, that was a terrible choice. I've never met anybody like that. And so I think, um, helping others and, looking to the community, if that's important to you, I think I would highly suggest you get involved in, a medical club, or something like that, or just start poking your nose around. Start asking your primary care doc, hey, like, how do I do this? Like, this is really cool. I would like to help people too. I think just asking questions, because it took a lot for me to even find this. It was kind of like my instructor kind of pushed me that direction. Um, and I had a friend, luckily enough, who just graduated PA school, and so he was kind of telling me about it. And so it really took a lot of, like, looking around and asking questions, and figuring out what it is that I wanted. And I think that helped push me into healthcare and helped me decide that I wanted to be a PA.
Do you think, so we talk a lot about how we are going to try to do outreach to children, right? So,
Mhm.
for example, if there's folks that don't have any family members that work in healthcare, they're not exposed to that, right?
Right, totally.
So how do we make that appealing to them, right? And so, one of the things is like trying to reach out to like middle school, elementary school to start planting the seed. Um, do you think that would have made a difference for you? Like, when was it the first time you were exposed to like healthcare, other than seeing a doctor yourself?
Yeah, like I said, my grandmother was a nurse, but I never really saw. I mean, she lived in Hawaii, and we lived, in Arizona. So, I was never really exposed to her at work, if you will.
Right, right.
Um, and so, yeah, besides seeing the PCP myself, never. I can't remember a time when I was in high school or anything, or middle school, where, like, career day or anything like that, where a doc came in or a PA came in and was like, "Hey, this is what I do. Would you like to do that?" I think just putting PAs in front of the community, and putting nurses, and putting, especially like male nurses and stuff like that, showing that up to little boys around the islands, like, hey, I can be a nurse. I can help other people. I can be a PA. I can be a doc. Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility for me to do that, even though, yeah, maybe my parents never went to college, or, but I could do that, and so, I think there's a lot of programs out there that would absolutely love to have the perspective of a Hawaiian man. I think Hawaiian men and Hawaiians in general bring such a different perspective, especially when it comes to like Western medicine and Western education and stuff like that. I think that we think differently. I don't know. I just it's something that I've noticed about myself when I'm kind of talking to other people. Um, I'm like, I didn't think of that, but I was thinking this, and they're like, I was never gonna say that. And I was like, oh, okay. And so it's just something I've noticed over time. But I think that I can't remember. I kind of lost my train of thought there.
No, it's fine.
But
It's fine. Yeah, so we've been trying to work on like we just did some interviews about some Kāne. And we didn't pose the question about healthcare. We just wanted to find out what their thinking was when they picked the occupation that they picked. And so we partnered with UH with a professor. And so some of the students did this as a project. And so a lot of it in the age range, I think from the Kāne that they interviewed was like from over 60 to like in their 20s, right? So there was a
okay,
age
yeah,
range, right? And so it's just some of it I think had a lot to do with the circumstance that they were in at that time, right?
yeah,
So how do we, and knowing that after they did that, now it's like how do we use that information to expose uh Kāne that are younger now, like even kids,
yeah,
to think about it. Because a lot of the times all they think about are doctors and nurses and dentists, right? When there's like
yeah.
so many other, like a whole hospital needs like, you
Oh
know,
yeah, so much staff. There's a lot, so many people that are so helpful in the whole process of just w- having the hospital run. It takes a myriad of different types of workers, different types of people to make it tick. You're absolutely right. Yeah, I think the the appeal of um, nope. The appeal of work in general is in a hospital and in life and is really important. Just knowing what it is that you want to do and having that sense of purpose.
So we have a question. What advice would you give to parents to support their keiki Kāne who want to pursue a degree in healthcare?
I think I would tell them to tell their kids to be patient. I think it's a very long road to get into healthcare of any type. Because I mean, even going, um, the EMT, uh, you know, nursing assistant, stuff like that. It takes education and it takes decisions. And so it's a really important um, choice to make because you don't want to get into healthcare for the wrong reasons either. Because it's not good for the community if you're going into healthcare for certain reasons. But I think telling them to be patient and trust that things will work out, and knowing that um, you should focus on what it is that you can control. And sometimes there's things that out of your control that that will affect your ability to go to school. Like you said, Lisa, like if you have family members who get sick or you have to take care of them, that's going to put that on hold. And so like I said, just being patient in general, I think that's something that I would tell them to tell their kids, because I think that like I said, it's a long road.
Mahalo for that. Um, I'm trying to see like what kind of uh, like different methods of how kids receive information, right? So we can say all we want to say, but they might not want to listen at all, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, so yeah, that is one of the challenges we're having in our department, is trying to figure out how we can reach the elementary school and the middle school ages. Because even um, I think there's so many evolutions to where they could go. Like, it took you a while, right, to
Yeah.
figure out what to do. Um, so what would you like, for example, if you could recruit other Kane to go into healthcare, what would you do?
Um, that's a very good question. I think I'd kind of start with um, the responsibility of the kuleana to help others in your community. I think that's something that in the Hawaiian community, especially, taking care of auntie down the street, is so important. And so what's different than doing that in a hospital setting or doing it in a clinic setting? Um, but this way you can be more part of their life, and I think that that's something that's really special, and something that provides a lot of fulfillment, um, and joy sometimes. I mean, I think obviously healthcare can be a really heavy field, but I think that when you see somebody get better, or when you see that they're making steps and they're making progress in whatever it is that their goals are, I think that seeing that progression is something that's so unique to healthcare, and seeing somebody's life change in front of your eyes, and I think that's so special. I would kind of emphasize that point, that in healthcare there's this unique opportunity to help people along so many different steps of their life, and I really think that that's what my um, I guess my thought would be, to recruit other kind of.
So how did you decide upon the school that you are attending now? Like, did someone help you, or did you do the research on your own?
I did it all by myself. I got lucky. My fiance actually goes there as well. She's in the occupational therapy program there,
Oh,
and so I was lucky enough in the application process, that we got to visit the school, and she was already there, so they were giving the families tours, and so I saw it and I was like, wow, this is such an amazing campus. I would totally love to be a part of this if they would let me. And luckily enough, they did. I think one thing that I liked about it was the class size. It's a lot smaller than some of the other schools, especially in the Phoenix area. Um, we only have 46 in our cohort, and some of the other schools have like close to 100. And so I thought getting that one-on-one with our professors, and actually getting to know them and them getting to know us a little bit would be so much more beneficial for me. And so that was one of the reasons why I chose Creighton.
nice. So was there someone that like helped you like figure out how to apply? And I'm sure there was like an interview and there was like a personal statement or something you had to write. Like, how did that, like, did you do that all on your own as well?
I like I said, I had a friend who was a PA, and he just got through school, and so luckily he was a perfect resource for me to be like, okay, I'm deciding to do this. How do I do it? And so he kind of helped me walk through some of those early steps. And then I owe a lot to my fiance. She's a great proofreader of essays. So she did a lot of work for me. She didn't write it or anything. I don't want to don't want to say that, but I wrote it, and she kind of was like, maybe you should move this around. Maybe you should do this and do this. And so she helped me edit it. So she definitely one of the rocks to get me into school. As far as the interview, yeah, it was a cool interview process actually. So it was multiple mini interviews. I don't know, have you heard of those before?
No.
Yeah, so they basically give you six, I think it was six, could have been 8. It was a flash. But they give you 6 or 8 different prompts, and they're all kind of ethical dilemmas. And then so you go through each station and describe how you'd respond to that situation. And so it was really fun. Yeah, I mean, if you're nervous and all that other stuff, you put that in the in the background. But it was kind of fun to do that whole process. But yeah, no, the interview went well, and then yeah, they called me to go to Creighton.
So the interview was in person, right? It wasn't
Yeah.
like yeah. And so it sounds like it was kind of like a speed dating setup. Like you went to station to answer these questions. And were there other people in the room with you?
No, so it was just the proctor, who they were all the professors.
Oh,
And
okay.
so they each got a chance to kind of get to know you. So in some of the other interviews that I did for PA school, you'd have like 2 professors in there, and they'd ask the same questions as every other professor in all their other interviews. So you really each professor got to know you,
Mm.
at least so that they could put a face to a name and things like that. And like, oh, I like their answer for this and that and that. So I thought it was a really interesting way to go about it.
So with all that you've experienced now, what advice would you give other people that are, one, researching a school, 2, the application process, and 3, like what kind of advice would you give folks, who are nervous about interviewing?
I'll address the last one first. I think the interviewing thing I think a lot of people struggle with that. And I think the more practice you get at interviewing, the better you get. It's like a muscle. That's the way I equate it. At least you got to work it out. If you don't work it out, you're gonna get weak. And so I think having somebody who's maybe gone through an interview process before, and even just having your mom and dad, like if we're talking about the keiki again, like if they're thinking about going to school or something like that, just you could. Chat GPT is amazing. I don't know if you guys use the AI stuff, but like you could plug in anything like, hey, I'm looking for interview prompts, and then it'll spit out a whole bunch of things, and you can have mom and dad read it to you, and then you can answer some of those questions. And I think the more and more you practice, and even just putting yourself through an interview prompt yourself, but looking in the mirror and looking at your mannerisms and things like that, I think that would really help, just kind of build those skills. Because I mean, not many 16, 17, 18-year-olds have a lot of interviewing skills.
Right.
So yeah, so that's what I'd say for that. In terms for looking at schools, I highly recommend looking at class sizes and looking at kind of what their specialties are. I really think smaller is better. Um, I so I said I went to University of New Mexico, but that was after I went to a community college first.
Mm.
And so I love the small class sizes. I think it's great because you get to actually have a conversation with the professor. I had a class at UNM where I think there was like 150 people in there. I saw the professor when he was up there lecturing, and then he was out the door on the way out, and I was like, okay. So I really think looking at some of those local schools and stuff like that, just like going to a community college and getting your base there, and then you can go out and find things. Because I think the burden of going to school, especially if you want to go out of state from Hawaii, like that's going to cost a lot of money. You got to pay for housing, you got to pay for dorms, you got to pay for the food and all that stuff. And my cousin's actually going through that right now. She's looking at schools in Arizona, and so it's an arduous process. And so um, I would say to look at class sizes, look at what you want to do, at least in theory. Because I mean, as an 18-year-old, I thought I wanted to do something, and then now as 32-year-old, I realized I wanted to do something else. So um, you know, go in with open mind. Look for those smaller class sizes and practice your interviews. That's what I would say.
Very nice. Well, I would open it up to anybody else who may be watching if they have any questions or comments. But it has been great chatting with you, Aaron. I wish you the best of luck and congratulations on finishing your midterms.
Thank you.
Mahalo for your time, for spending the time with us on Moana Nui's podcast. You are the last of the fourth of our 4-part series of Kāne Voices. Hopefully we'll be able to bring it back. But at this point, with the new administration, we are also busy kind of doing some new work here. And so we're just going to go on pause. And just for an FYI, for those that are thinking about going into healthcare and that are looking to apply to our Native Hawaiian Health Scholarship Program, because of all these changes that are coming down that's affecting everybody, our scholarship program is actually on pause right now until the dust settles. So it's normally we would be open on February 1st, but right now we're on pause. And so we're going to post information, updates on our website, our social media pages. So Papaʻo Lōkahi website. We also have Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Check back for updates there. And then we also have a landing page that has our scholarship information on it. So hopefully we'll still be able to open up the scholarship this year, but we're just waiting day by day, being on standby. So just as an FYI, but appreciate you, Aaron. Congratulations on getting engaged. Sounds like things are looking up for you. And I would just want to thank Moana and Dana and the podcast for allowing us to be here and share. And if you missed us, it will be recorded on their social media pages as well. So everybody take care out there. I know things are a little bit chaotic, but we're trying to stay positive and just keep moving forward. So mahalo, Aaron.
Mahalo, guys. Thank you.
All right. Ahui ho. Take care, everybody.
So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will.
If this the land of the free, it was a freedom then. When they annexed Hawaii and called it cedar lands, without any type of payment and no signing off. Called themselves a republic in 1894. 1.2 million acres overtaken from the Native Hawaiians. When they resisted, the West retaliated in violence and erasure. The Hawaiian language is banned as part of colonialism's plan to expand, yeah.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe. As a part of their ongoing war with Asia, used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. The work of all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will. We will.
So if you put Hawaii into perspective, well, Black and Asian history is interconnected. Considering the fight with the Pacific, then of course versus Asia, they was treated as a middleman for war, but didn't let the Western colorism run its course. Cause dark skin was a sign of dignity to core. The land was taken in the name of capitalism, when prior to it was an actual kingdom. Clap back at the system.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe. As a part of their ongoing war with Asia, used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. The work of all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell. Even if we have to ourselves, can keep history on the shelf. If he won't tell it, we will. So many stories left to tell. Even if we have to ourselves, can keep history on the shelf. If he won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell. Even if we have to ourselves, can keep history on the shelf. If he won't tell it, we will. He